Hello, we'll get started. Hello, I'm Paula Morrison, and I'm currently a regional practice lead in research and knowledge transformation in long-term care for interior health. And I'd like to welcome Kyle and Cheryl from the Central Okanagan Hospice Association for joining us today and presenting. I'd like to begin with a land acknowledgement that Interior Health and UBCO are situated on the traditional, ancestral, unceded territory of the Silks Okanagan Nation. I'd also like to acknowledge that that you may be joining us today from many other places near and far, and maybe you would like to acknowledge the traditional owners and caretakers of the lands. Welcome to the 13th Annual Okanagan Embrace Aging Month, and thank you for joining us today. Embrace Aging is co-hosted by Interior Health and the Institute for Healthy Living and Chronic Disease Prevention at UBC Okanagan. Embrace Aging Month was launched 13 years ago, and it's meant to celebrate and raise awareness about positive aging and has once again organized a number of educational opportunities and events during the month of March. The beauty of these events is they're free and accessible, some on virtual, some in person. Please check out our website, OkanaganEmbraceAging.com. The sessions are designed for everyone, young and old alike, and focus on a variety of topics related to healthy aging and ways to improve quality of life among seniors and family caregivers and those in the community. Our goal is to inspire everyone to embrace positive aging. Some housekeeping pieces, closed captioning. To turn your closed captioning off, if it's on and you want to change it, you can select the hide caption button on the menu bar. Questions, you can type questions or comments for the speakers into the chat box during the presentations. Questions will be read at the end of the presentation, and if for some reason we go over or we can't answer all the questions, our presenters are happy to answer any questions after and we can connect you. You'll get some information sent to you after with the presentation slides, which is so appreciated. Feedback for this event, please complete the survey that will be emailed to you after the event. Today's event is brought to you with support of Embrace Aging Month. Today's session is holistic care, total health, hospice palliative care, and our local landscape of support. Our speakers are Cheryl Sewell, Community Services Coordinator for Central Okanagan Hospice Association, and Kyle Yeung, Master of Social Work practicum student with Central Okanagan Hospice Association. So thank you for coming and attending and presenting. I'll pass the mic over to Kyle.
Yeah, thank you, Paula, for the introduction. My name's Kyle, as Paul stated. And just to add on to Paula's land acknowledgement, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that, like many other Indigenous peoples, the Silk have preserved traditional worldviews of aging and caregiving practices that help them care for their community members. And in this way, among others, the Silk continue to resist the ongoing impacts of settler colonialism, which disproportionately affect Indigenous children and older adults. And the Central Okanagan Hospice Association, or COHA for short, is committed to our journey of building relationship with the local Indigenous community to improve the accessibility and cultural safety of our services for Indigenous folks. Yeah, next slide. Thank you. And so a bit about COHA. The Central Okanagan Hospice Association has served the Central Okanagan from Peachland to Lake Country for 44 years by providing non-medical hospice palliative care services to those who are dying and their loved ones, ultimately in line with our vision of creating a community where nobody has to die or grieve alone. Um, our mission, in line with this vision, is to offer compassionate care, comfort, support, and learning to those in our community who are dying or grieving. And as a nonprofit, we work very closely, though separately, from Interior Health to provide these services. Next slide. And I've mentioned hospice palliative care a couple of times up until this point, talking about what COHA does, and maybe it would be helpful to define it. So, hospice palliative care, or palliative care, we'll use both interchangeably for the purposes of this presentation, is not just a place or a type of care, but an approach to care that seeks to improve the quality of life of people nearing end of life, and also people just with life-threatening illness or life-limiting illness. Um, and we also seek to improve the quality of life of their families. And how we attempt to do that is through the prevention and relief of suffering, not just physical pain, not just the treatment of physical pain, but an approach that considers total pain, including other physical, psychosocial, and spiritual problems. Next slide. And so I mentioned whole person care as part of that hospice palliative care framework, and maybe it would be helpful to define that as well. We often think of hospice palliative care as just medical care, and people do enter through medical care often, but it is much more than that. Like I said, it's an approach to care, and it's a philosophy that seeks to prevent and relieve suffering for those facing a life-limiting illness. Whole person care, like the name suggests, address the whole person, considering the very multidimensional nature of humans and their wellness. And at the center of all of this is the individual living with the serious illness and their family. Um, in hospice palliative care, we seek to provide person and family centered care that respects the unique needs, goals, wishes, and values of the person and their family, meeting them where they are in their illness and their psychosocial well being. With whole person care, we offer a support system to help the family to cope during a loved one's life limiting illness, as well as in their bereavement, which requires a multidisciplinary care team. And through all of this, we're centering the patient and their family, their characteristics, their needs, their wishes, their beliefs, and also their strengths. Next slide. So let's break down what whole person care might look like in practice, starting with the physical element of whole person care. This might be perhaps the most obvious. Thank you. Physical care within whole person care involves disease and pain management, involves the rehabilitation and preservation of physical functions, and also the safety of the environment of the person with the life-limiting illness as well as their family. There's also a psychological element, personality traits like anxiety, um, and socialization can be an important part of psychological whole person care. Emotions that typically arise when someone is nearing end of life or facing a life-limiting illness, like fear or uncertainty, um, can also be a piece of this psychological care. Self-image, when people are living with a life-limiting illness from the point of diagnosis and until they near end of life, their self-image can be affected by their experiences of illness and their experience of nearing end of life. And so whole person care also seeks to address that element of psychological care. And then with social, I alluded to this earlier when it came to socialization. People who are facing life-limiting illness or nearing end of life still do benefit and require social interaction, still benefit and require the maintenance of relationships and also connection to culture, um, which also ties into the spiritual element of whole person care. When someone is nearing end of life or facing a life-limiting illness, or if someone is a loved one of someone going through that experience, oftentimes increasingly existential and important questions, meanings, and values come into conversation. Things like spiritual practices and rituals, discussions of these meanings, values, and beliefs, as well as these existential questions of what it means to live a good life as one faces life-limiting illness, all come into play. The practical element of whole person care consists of accommodating and facilitating the activities of daily living for the person who is facing the life-limiting illness and also their family. If a patient has dependents that they need to make arrangements for, that also falls within the practical element of whole person care, as well as accordingly any financial or legal considerations that the patient and their family might have to negotiate. End of life care. Now, this is with reference to someone imminently nearing their end of life. This involves work to find closure for the patient and their family, which might involve legacy work, the discussion and the facilitation of someone building their legacy for their loved ones and for their community. And as someone nears their final days and hours, vigil support, someone sitting vigil by that patient, whether that is a person in their circle of care or someone from an organization such as COHA, is a piece of end of life care as well. And then finally, loss and grief. Uh, Once a patient dies, bereavement planning is necessary leading up to and after that point, whether that includes a funeral, like memorial services of that kind, or celebrations of life, and also planning for support after loss, like grief counseling and grief support groups, to facilitate that person's mourning process and ensure that they're supported. Thanks, Sharon. Now, to explore whole person care applied in practice, this illness trajectory model shows the shift in focus through the illness trajectory and how hospice palliative care plays an increasingly significant role. This trajectory illustrates the spectrum of supports that are available at any stage of the illness trajectory, from the time of diagnosis to bereavement and through end of life care. At the time of diagnosis, the focus is mainly on care to treat or manage the illness, with some support from hospice palliative care to relieve suffering and improve quality of life. And ideally, palliative care is available to patients and their families throughout the illness and can coexist alongside more curative treatments. Um, but research has shown that the earlier integration of palliative care provides for better care and outcomes for people living with life-limiting illnesses and their families. And I just want to reiterate that hospice palliative care encompasses not only the person with the life-limiting illness, but also their caregivers and their family. Care doesn't end when the person with the life-limiting illness dies, but rather continues with bereavement support to family and their caregivers. And this approach has been shown again to increase quality of life for the patient living with life-limiting illness, as well as their family and caregivers. And we alluded to this earlier as well, but hospice palliative care does carry some myths, and I just want to quickly address those for our audience here. Hospice palliative care is not only for people approaching death. In fact, hospice palliative care can benefit people of any age living with a life-limiting illness from diagnosis until end of life and bereavement. Second, hospice palliative care is not only about pain control and symptom management. That is the physical element of whole person care. But hospice palliative care rather takes a whole person care perspective on holistic well-being, addressing those psychological, spiritual, social, and practical elements of care as well to support a person's well-being. Third, hospice is not only a physical building where people live out their final days. Rather, hospice palliative care is an approach to care that can be provided in many settings, including hospices like the Kelowna Hospice House run by Interior Health, but also in other places like homes or offices, or any other kind of care facility. Fourth, simply because a person's physician has not mentioned hospice palliative care does not mean that the patient may not need it. In fact, patients are more than welcome to start those conversations about hospice palliative care with their doctors as well as the rest of their healthcare teams. And last, but certainly not least, receiving hospice palliative care does not mean admitting defeat. Hospice palliative care is aimed at improving quality of life for people living with any stage of illness and their loved ones. So this is not something that one is only allowed to seek out when they are nearing their final days. And it does not mean that someone is admitting defeat or admitting that they've lost to their disease simply because they are seeking hospice palliative care. And next, Cheryl will talk a bit about our local landscape of support here in the Central Okanagan.
Morning. Thanks for joining us today, and thank you, Kyle, for that. So after everything that Kyle has mentioned, when we look at the whole person and all the various elements of care, you can imagine that it truly does take a village to care for a person living with a life-limiting illness. Hospice palliative care teams are made up of a diverse group of healthcare professionals, volunteers, families, community supports like schools and teachers, churches, cultural centers, lots of people involved in the care for these people who take on a holistic approach to care. Um, Team members may vary depending on the individual's needs and their wishes and the setting of care that they're in. but both the client and the family, whether the family is their biological family or chosen family, and or the primary caregiver too, remain a constant key member of the team. And really, I do want to make sure that people understand that family members and caregivers are really an integral part of the caregiving team, as they're the ones that are seeing this individual daily and often know them best. We also recognize that support is needed for caregivers. So the circle of care is also there to support them through their own heavy journeys. The interdisciplinary team is interconnected with the individual and their family. Again, as Kyle mentioned, with their needs, the family and the individual's needs at the center and wishes at the center. Um, in the Central Okanagan, there's a number of different care settings that palliative care can be delivered. So it may be in somebody's home. Somebody's home might be their private home. It could be a retirement or a seniors residence. It could be assisted living or even supportive housing. In the Central Okanagan, again, we've got Kelowna General Hospital. Typically, these are brief admissions to assist with pain and symptom management with a plan to return home or to maybe to a hospice bed. But some people, unfortunately, do remain in the hospital in some situations where there are no other options. So at KGH, there is a palliative unit comprised of 4 beds for people who are imminently nearing the end of life. Sometimes palliative care winds up being administered in acute care if the situation also becomes dire. Um, Palliative care can happen in long-term care. And I want to note that if a person is in long-term care, they receive support only from the long-term care team for their medical care, including palliative care. So palliative care is provided in their residence. The team does have access to consultative support from Interior Health's palliative care team, but their whole care system remains in the long-term care facility. In some very rare situations, a client might be transferred to the hospital, but folks that are living in long-term care are typically not eligible to transfer to a community hospice bed. So just wanted to make sure that that is something that's understood. Community hospice beds. We have on Ethel Street, we've got Kelowna Hospice House, which has 24 hospice beds. And sometimes there's a little bit of confusion between Kelowna Hospice House and the Central Okanagan Hospice Association. The Kelowna Hospice House is managed and operated by Interior Health. We do have supports there. We've got our colleague Carmen Coquerel, who is there providing one-to-one supports. She does food programs. They do the gardening there, and she has entertainment come in. A bunch of different things that we do to support Interior Health in caring for our clients there. Also at Brookhaven, there are 3 hospice beds. Brookhaven is in West Kelowna and is primarily a long-term care home, but there are 3 community hospice beds located there as well. And I just want to mention too that a lot of people think of community hospice as being a place to go for end of life, but that is definitely true. But people also go there for pain and symptom management, and they might go there for respite if their caregivers need a little bit of time to rest and relax, or if they can't, for some reason, they have to go out of town or what have you. Folks can go to a community hospice for respite. So I wanted to share with you a number of resources in the Central Okanagan that people living with a life-limiting illness and their families have access to. So these are resources to support all the elements of the whole person. So the physical, personal, social, emotional, and spiritual elements of the whole person. There is, of course, Interior Health. So, your most responsible practitioner, whether that's your family doctor or a nurse practitioner. If care is needed in the home, Interior Health also has the Home and Community Care Program that can provide support such as nursing care, equipment supplies, respite, home support services, and work support at home. Um, if a person is nearing end of life and has an approximate prognosis of 3 months or less, they may be eligible for Interior Health's palliative care program. For that program, a referral from a physician is needed, and then they put supports in place depending on the individual's needs. So again, it could be typically there's nursing supports and social work supports. There can be personal care supports or different home supports, respite for caregivers, equipment supplies, respiratory therapy, a number of different things to help that person who is at home. There's also a team called the Palliative Chronic Disease Management Team, or the PCDMT team. And this is unfortunately only offered in the core of Kelowna right now, but they support people who may not be eligible for the palliative program, but who are living with an end stage disease such as COPD or end stage kidney disease or congestive heart failure, things like that. So the support that the PCDMT provides is very similar to what the palliative care teams provide. So nursing and social work, personal care, respite, and such. At the as an end of life option, there is of course medical assistance in dying, and so Interior Health also has a MAID coordination team. Requests go to a team of social workers who are the coordinators who work in conjunction with physicians, nurse practitioners, and nurses who perform the assessments and the MAID provisions. There, of course, for people who are living with cancer, there's BC Cancer, who are a team of oncologists, and also there are pain and symptom management specialists and different psychosocial supports. So there's many other supports that are offered by this organization. I already talked about long-term care, and again, I wanted to separate them out as they are essentially a separate healthcare system than people who are still living in their own homes. Um, Allied health, a quick mention to those folks too, like occupational therapists, physiotherapists, pharmacists, respiratory therapists, dietitians. There's a whole host of allied healthcare workers who might be a part of the established healthcare team or might be procured privately. And of course, if there are many different care options for those people who are willing and able to pay privately for services for personal care, for nursing support, maybe it's naturopathic support or counseling and psychiatry. It's endless. So, more on the psychosocial side of things, there are a lot of different online supports that we can tap into. I wanted to mention the Family Caregivers of BC. They're a great online um, organization, and they provide supports for caregivers. They have great resources online, but they also have virtual caregiver support groups as well. The Canadian Cancer Society, they have, again, a lot of neat resources online. But one thing that I've noticed recently is they've got this board where people can go and ask questions. They can connect with people who are also living with a cancer diagnosis. Caregivers can connect with other people. So it's a great little community that they've established there. Um, for folks who are looking at or considering medical assistance in dying, or who have chosen that as their end of life choice, there is Bridge C14. They're again another online resource for people dealing with MAID, and they have groups They have support groups, they have bereavement groups, they have other resources. It's a really great resource for people who are going through the MAID journey. And as well, there's the MAID Family Support Society, another great nonprofit who has volunteers who have lived experiences with MAID, and so it's more like a peer-to-peer resource, but they have different resources online as well. From a spiritual care perspective, there's a number of different ways that people can get emotional and spiritual support and address these different existential concerns that they might be facing, or maybe some religious consultation. So at KGH, there's a spiritual health practitioner. He's full time there, and there's another gentleman who does volunteer at Kelowna Hospice House as a spiritual health practitioner as well. Of course, there's faith leaders, and at most of the long-term care homes, there are chaplains as well that are great supports. From a community supports perspective, again, there's lots out there, but there's a few that I wanted to just note because I've found them very, very helpful with the clients that we work with. So Lake Country Health, they're based out of Lake Country, but they do offer supports in Lake Country, but also in Kelowna and West Kelowna. And one of the really neat things that they have are caregiver support groups. So they have one in Lake Country, there's two in Kelowna, and there's one in West Kelowna as well. They also have an equipment bank and other mental health supports. Inspire Health is a great organization that people can access virtually, but also there's a counselor in town. So they support people who are living with a cancer diagnosis as well as their caregivers. So they run other online programs like nutrition classes, fitness classes. But again, I think an important part to note for them is their counseling services. The Better at Home program, gosh, this is offered all over the place in most of the major city centers. And I know like West Side Health Network and Peachland Wellness Center and Lake Country Health, I think they are starting to get into this as well. They offer better at home programs to help people, seniors, to stay home and live well at home and live independently at home. So they have grocery shopping, they have volunteers who will come and visit, cleaning services, snow removal services. So, a number of different things, again, to help people live better at home. The West Side Health Network, we've had a few clients of ours who've utilized them for their transportation services, but they also have volunteer visitors. They have a walk and talk, so a number of different resources as well. Similarly, Peachland Wellness Center, they do a whole bunch of really neat community sort of social and fitness activities. But also notably, they have a grief group that they offer. Lots of different services, again, including transportation, grocery shopping and pickup, friendly calls or visits through their Better at Home program. And then there's us, COHA, Central Okanagan Hospice Association. And I'm going to just kind of go into a little bit more detail about what we do in our community. So the program that I'm responsible for is the community visiting program. And as Kyle mentioned, we offer non-medical or psychosocial support to those who are living with a life-limiting illness and their family or caregivers. Typically, the people we support have an illness trajectory of less than a year, but I do review things on a case-by-case basis, so it's not necessarily written in stone. Referrals often come to us through Interior Health, but we're happy to accept referrals from anybody, whether it's self-referral or family or friends. Again, happy to accept any referrals. All of our services are free of cost as well. So, through our community visiting program, we offer companionship. That might be emotional companionship, social, spiritual support, or it might be practical support as well. Practical support, we've got volunteers that help people to sort of downsize if they're moving in from a home to assisted living, for example. We have a client right now who we're helping to ready their home for sale. So just trying to help them with the physical tasks of organizing and bringing things to charity. Um, Emotional supports, there's lots of people out there who have great family supports, but would like to have somebody outside of their close knit bubble to talk to. It just seems to be a little less burdensome for them and helpful to talk to somebody outside and not directly related to them. And then there's people who don't have any supports at all locally and need somebody to talk to. And these, our volunteers walk alongside them. We're not counselors, but we're very good listeners. From a social perspective, it's interesting how our volunteers often say it doesn't feel like they're doing anything when they're just going to have tea with them or playing cards with them. But for people who are often isolated because of an illness that they're living with, social becomes a huge part of their quality of life. And, I see our role as really being helpers in trying to make their quality of life as best as they can and to live as best as they can. There's a really interesting example of a client that we were supporting. Prior to our support, she was in and out of the hospital for depression, just not doing well at all. We had a volunteer come in and he started playing cards with her. Before we knew it, their card games went into their sort of um, common area, and other people started joining them. And that kept this woman's spirits up, and we never saw her go back into the hospital for depression. So it's a really important piece of quality of life. Spiritual support, we've got volunteers who will go and read from a religious text to them with for people who have vision issues. I've had a volunteer who sang hymns to a client who is mostly bedbound, and sometimes there are people who just have these, existential questions as they're approaching end of life, and maybe some anxiety along with that. And it's just really wonderful to have somebody to talk to. Comfort cares Comfort cares can be anything from, we had a client who wanted a jar of red and green jelly beans at Christmas, so we were able to provide that to them. At Kelowna Hospice House, we provide specialty channels on the TV, and we've had even a client who we've provided cable support for them to watch movies with their spouse and to manage online supports for them. Legacy work is really amazing work that our volunteers do with our clients. It might be as simple as letters to loved ones or putting photo albums together. A lot of times it becomes a life review or stories about their lives to remind them of their purpose and their meaning and their accomplishments. So again, really important work. One-to-one caregiver support. We recognize again the importance and challenges of caregiving, so we offer caregiver support in the form of respite support to give them some peace of mind while they maybe go and take care of themselves for a little bit or do some errands. And then again, we provide one-to-one support, their own confidant to talk to and walk alongside them as they journey through this difficult time. Um, Kyle had mentioned vigil support. So this is our sitting bedside during a person's last days or hours, so that they don't have to die alone if that's something that they are anxious about. Particularly if somebody doesn't have local family or friends, or to provide some again respite to spell off family to allow them to have time to rest and shower and eat. And then we do provide maid support, provide a listening ear to people who are contemplating or just going through the final days of their life before they're made provision. We help to manage their last days. We help them to put celebrations together sometimes, and we've even been with clients during their provision. And all of these supports that we provide can be provided in private homes, assisted living, supportive living, long term care, the hospital, hospice house, Brookhaven, anywhere really a person calls home. So we also provide bereavement services, grief and bereavement services. The coordinator for that program, her name is Andy Harvey, and referrals need to go directly to her. We ask that the individual who is looking for support call her directly. And again, our services for grief and bereavement are free of charge. So for adults and for children, we do provide one-to-one professional counseling. Um, and we have a number of grief support groups too. For adults, there is a mixed loss, a spousal loss, and a child loss group. And then we've got our groups for children and youth. We've got two walking groups for adults, one in Kelowna, one in West Kelowna, and we also do provide a resource library at our office here on Cooper Road. And if individuals are wanting just one-to-one volunteer support, that is also something that we provide. And for children and youth, we also have a one-to-one expressive art grief therapist. And we do individual expressive art nights for teens as well. We've got water camps, horse whisperer camps, and training information or caregiver information and training sessions. We also do have outreach to support the school district for children. And sorry, I should say too, our services are offered to children and youth ages 5 to 19 years. And then we have our wellness program. Reiki is a really popular thing with our clients. We offer Reiki, which is essentially an energy modality that promotes relaxation. And we've found it beneficial to those who have experienced a loss, as well as those who are living with a life-limiting illness. So we offer this to bereaved clients in our office, as well as to palliative clients and caregivers in their homes as a part of our community visiting program. For our bereaved clients, we offer gentle and restorative yoga, as well as meditation and mindfulness workshops. And this is just us. This is the myself and Carmen Coquerel, who has an office at Kelowna Hospice House, and Andy Harvey, who is our grief and bereavement program. And we're always happy to answer any questions if you ever have any. So feel free to contact us. So thank you so much for your time today. Oh, and I should mention also, we have a very wide range of volunteers, and we're always looking for more. We look for a diversity of people, since that is the group that we're supporting in our community. So if you ever have any questions on volunteering or have an interest, you can always direct your call or your questions to Nicola. Thank
That's
you.
that's fantastic. That's an option because I think depending where you are in a journey like of hospice or palliative care, sometimes you find um, yeah, that helping someone else along your journey is their journey is helpful and healing. So thank you, Cheryl and Kyle, for presenting on this important topic of holistic care, total health. I really appreciated the pieces on yeah, the quality of life pieces that we sometimes don't think about when we're in it. But reaching out and supporting each other in this way is really powerful, and learning about the resources is super helpful. Thank you. We open the floor to any questions that we might have. And no worries, like if something comes up afterwards, we're happy to connect you, but we will hold space for you to ask a question in the chat if you'd like. No one else sees your question, but maybe you want to share it as a group, or maybe you want to reach out to COHA on your own too. So there's options. Let's give a few minutes. Yeah, and maybe as we're we see. Thank you so much for this valuable information someone shared with us. Yeah. And I want to thank Jaquetta while she's here. Jaquetta is working in the technical support side for us and helps organize us. Thank you everyone for attending. I'm just going to do some thank yous while we're pausing. Thank you, Kyle and Cheryl, both for taking time with us today. Appreciate you. I appreciate the Institute for Healthy Living and Chronic Disease Prevention. And I just wanted to share that there's a YouTube channel for that as well, and this will be posted there. So yeah, I had a comment. Great job, Kyle and Cheryl. Thank you. Some nice feedback. We encourage you to attend other events scheduled for Embrace Aging Month. So you can find those events on OkanaganEmbraceAging.com for events and registration. Yeah, we look forward to growing this event and encourage everyone to support it. And yeah, if you have any feedback, please contact us through that survey, or you'll receive an email with a link to an online evaluation form. Oh, I see some other. Oh, yeah. Uh, the presentation slides will be forwarded, and there'll be an evaluation form, and we'll welcome everybody's feedback and suggestions. You did such a good job. There's not a lot of questions coming in, but sometimes you know how it is, it percolates afterwards and they may reach out in other ways and forms, email or phone calls.
And as I mentioned, we're always happy to address any questions.
Yeah, I learned so much from you both. I was like, I have done some thinking about the space and some end of life care moments, and I still am always amazed. Oh, that's available. Oh, that's interesting. And you kind of receive information in different times in your life when you're ready to hear it. It's like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, thank you.
We've been in the community for 44 years now, and there's still a lot of people who have said to us, we've never heard of you before. So just always trying to get the word out there that there are other supports for you when you're going through this journey. And it's a tough one to do it on your own.
Yes, the reaching out piece is, I think, one of the challenging pieces. I've been talking about this in different spaces about being stoic and being strong. It's great for some things, but sometimes it enriches us to engage and receive support. So I encourage people to consider receiving support, and that's not always easy, I know, but I've been that person who's not always been receptive and then realize, oh, if you open your circle, you get some gifts that you might be surprised by. So yeah, thank you. I think we're
I was worried
yeah.
about time.
Yeah, I think we did well on time, so we might give people back some time in their day, and maybe you can pause and take a breath, maybe get outside. If you're in the Okanagan, there's snow, so be careful.
Sorry,
But
we do have someone with their hand up. I'm not
oh, is
sure.
there? Okay, I don't see that. Uh, part- oh yes. Oh no, that's our organizer. It maybe just be um, no,
No, I
I think
think
that's
Beth
okay.
may be able to ask.
Oh, it is Bev. Okay. Can we can Bev Chiquetta, should that go through the chat, or can I open that up? I don't know how I don't know if I can
I
open it.
think I'd taken her mic off. She can ask a question.
Okay, Bev, I see your hand is up. Is that meant? Did you mean to raise your hand and raise a question? If you can take your mic off, it's not off. I see it red. Apologies, Bev. Oh, there's another comment. This is from a comment, and the participant said, I have used the grief support groups years ago, and the resource library both were excellent. So there's a vote of support of.
You know, I'm glad you were able to use our support groups. Our support groups, we find, are a nice way of connecting as well with other people that folks can relate to, you know. So, as much as the information is important, I think the more important thing is the connection between the people who attend. And some of our groups, they continue outside of COHA, which is what we always hope for. And they continue to support each other through their journey.
Circle widens, and that's, yeah.
Yeah.
And then being able to have the language and safe places to be together on that journey, that's beautiful.
And I should mention, like, some people might start off with professional counseling from our counselors, and then they might feel, you know, that they're ready to then dive into a support group. And then after the support group, sometimes they'll do our walking group. So, you know, it's sort of, we try to really wrap around our clients and support them in various different ways that might be appropriate, depending on where they're at in their grief process.
Yeah,
And,
because those journeys aren't always linear too, right? Like they're,
No.
yeah.
and not
Sorry,
just wrap
Kyle.
around them in terms of um, stage to stage, but also each member of the family too. So, for example, we can definitely have, for example, parents who go into grief counseling as go into adult grief counseling for themselves, and also have their children come in to do our children's grief groups or our expressive arts nights, or yeah. So we can also support every member of the family as well at once.
It's amazing. Yeah, I think what we'll have you do with the individual with the hand up, maybe when we send out the information, maybe you could ask that question because it's not releasing. Oh, there, I see your mic is off, I think. Can you ask the question? No, the mic is off. Maybe it wasn't intentional. Oh,
I'd love to talk to you, Beverly, any time.
So how do we get more information?
So can you still see, I don't know if you can still see my slides, but you can always contact me at Cheryl at hospicecoha.org, or you can call us at 250-763-5511.
Okay, and the local
For myself is 108.
108,
So
and
yeah, so if you're interested in community visiting or our community services for palliative services, that would be me. If it's more on the grief and bereavement side, it would be my colleague Andy Harvey, and her local is 106.
Andy.
Yeah.
ANDI. Yeah.
ANDI. Yeah.
Okay, and it was a good program. Thank you very much.
Oh,
Yeah,
Thank
I
you
have
for
hospice volunteering at the coast. I took my course
nice.
and at
Amazing.
hospice here.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for sharing that and for doing that work.
Yeah, it's very emotional and rewarding as well if you know that they don't have loved ones nearby.
I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad you'll be able to reach out again to them, to
Mhm.
Cheryl and to Andy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We have yeah. That there's any other questions coming up.
And
Well,
and sometimes even if I can't answer your question, I'll help to put people in touch with people who can. Because again, when we talk about this circle of care, I try to connect with as many people in our community as possible. And even with interior health, we're talking on a weekly basis. And so yeah, we'll try to figure things out together.
it's fantastic. Appreciate it. Thank you for attending, everyone, and thank you for presenting Cheryl and Kyle this good information, and I appreciate it. I think we will wrap the session up, and yeah, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.